It was a busy week in Europe. Pep Guardiola and Manchester City went out of the Champions League to Real Madrid, and then it was a quick turnaround, and this is key. It was a quick turnaround to that cup semi-final, of course, up against Chelsea, which Manchester City went on to win. Now, Pep Guardiola suggested that he may refuse extra requests from broadcasters after launching into something of a rant around scheduling following City's win over Chelsea. He teed off on the BBC and then he kind of kept it going in the after media conference which followed. Have a listen.
I don't understand how we survived today. I don't understand. People cannot imagine how punchy in our face, to be out for the Champions League in the way we are out. Why don't give us one more day for the help to the players to arrive on Sunday? Because Coventry, Chelsea and Man United, they don't play in Champions League, they don't play Europa League, they don't play in the midweek. For broadcasters, okay, don't ask me after to do extra things because we're not going to do it. So it's unacceptable to play today. So we play in incredible difficult conditions and the game was tight. Chelsea had incredible chances in transitions. We had control well because we make a lot of easy balls loose because for our tired, because some players make an incredible effort. What they have done today is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a group of players.
So Guardiola is suggesting there, Simon, that it's a bit of a Mickey take on behalf of the authorities, maybe the broadcasters as well, that they're made to play in a time schedule that they were made to play in. Thereafter, the suggestion is, so I might refuse extra requests from the broadcasters because of this.
Well done.
Don't be disappointed if you come for an interview and you don't get it. It's because of this schedule you've put before us. What's your take on that?
Look, I mean, I'm not going to back the broadcasters on every front because I disagree with certain things on the entitlement of the media. But let's have it right. The reasons why you've got one of the most expensively assembled squads, the reasons why football people are paid the ridiculous salaries they're now paid is because of the broadcast revenues. So you can't take all of the upside and none of the downside. I watched his interview after the game with Gary Lineker, who I think was lost for words, which I always think is a bonus. But he, came out and this ridiculous martyr syndrome. If they'd have beaten Madrid, you probably wouldn't have heard the same outlook from him. You're in the business of sport. Your achievements are taking you to the higher echelons of games, and your fixture schedules are as a result of it. You've got a squad commensurate with it. You've got players capable of dealing with it. Shut up now. To me, it's beyond the pale of acceptance for most reasonable. If you're a Man City fan, you'll be appalled at my observations here because everything that's said about Man City that vaguely veers into some sort of criticism is some mortal sin. But enough now.
But Simon,
enough now.
Hang on a second.
How are you going to change the fixtures? They were drawn out of a hat. They cut FA Cup semi-finals. What are you going to do? Ask Manchester United and Coventry to move their game to the Saturday so you can have yours on the Sunday.
Now, of course,
is that how it works in?
Being in the media, of course, I think it would be wrong to refuse media requests. Of course I would. But does he have a case to a degree that we saw in a week over in Madrid when Haaland and De Bruyne say, need to come off, low on gas, need out here.
So what? They've got a big enough squad.
Rodri's talked about being exhausted at this point in the season. Guardiola says, I don't know how Rodri's done what he's done.
Because it's been seeded into them. This constant bitching and whining about it. And Graeme can pick this up because I'm pretty sure he has a view on how many games they play against the amount of games he played and the pitches they played on, the physicality they played under. It's been seeded in now. Now the players are biting down on it. It's an excuse culture in football a lot of the time. It's now being forced into their psyche like in this country. We have a mental well-being problem. We have a mental health crisis amongst the young. No, we don't. We have people suggesting that we do, so then people start to latch upon it. Now the players
this is the
are jumping
greatest
on it.
manager of our generation saying players need to be protected more. They're running out of gas. What I'm saying is where he's wrong in my view is saying I'm going to say no to certain broadcast media interview requests. That's wrong. Why involve them? Because he's used the broadcast media over the weekend to make this very point. Because does he not have a point though?
No, I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I think ultimately football has moved on to such a level, and I'm going to let Graeme pick up the cudgel on this, because these teams played 60, 65 games a season on pitches that were nowhere near the pitches they've got now, with one substitute, without the medical conditions, with players like Norman Hunter or God knows whoever else were prepared to kick you up here and down Dell. Now tell me about the modern day footballer and their propensity to overcome adversity. It's nonsense. Nonsense.
I don't think City will
Is
get...
Pep talking nonsense here?
I don't think City will get any sympathy vote. I think, they're consistently in the Champions League, which means they've got a great deal of money to spend on players. They've got a fantastic squad and a big squad. Should be able to deal with it. I think a lot of it comes down to, I think, snowflake society. We live. That's what we are right now. I don't care if what people call me a dinosaur. Absolutely anything. We live in a society which is just full of excuses.
Agreed.
And I think it's crept into football. And I would say that, I think the sports scientists, they call themselves scientists, but the sports scientists at football clubs are planting seeds all over the place. His numbers tell you this. His numbers tell you that. They've got a monitor for every part of your body except the most important part. You can't put a monitor on your head and your brain to tell you. Some people get to the wall and say, that's me done. And then the guy next to you says, I'm just starting. I'm going over that wall or through that wall, but I'm getting to the other side. And that's what you get. You get that mix of that blend in football as well. I don't think City. I can't see City getting any sympathy for their current predicament. That's the price on being successful. And as you alluded to, same when I played. We won the league one year with 15 players. I played 61 games that year. There were some of them played 67 games. And okay, the football wasn't so demanding. Really?
So what? Should Haaland shape up? Should De Bruyne shape up?
I wrote that in my
Should Rodri shape up?
I wrote that column. I wrote my column on Saturday morning, referring to that. I've never heard, never witnessed, either as a player or as a manager, a player coming to me or a player going to the manager and saying, I need to come off. I'm tired. I just wonder if the translation has been lost with Pep somewhere. I can't believe that happened. I don't think a player would come over and say, I feel a bit of tightness in my hammy, or I feel my calf, stiffening up.
But Graeme, it's not just Guardiola
not
saying
just coming
this.
off for
Klopp has said it long enough.
Not just for being tired.
Klopp tends to moan about 12:30 schedules and suggest that the early schedules on a Saturday are constantly foisted upon Liverpool. I can't help but think that I'm very disappointed by arguably, debatably, the greatest manager in football constantly going down this route. I understand that if you say something long enough, eventually people are going to subscribe to your point of view.
Your point, if they had won against Real Madrid, this would not have been a conversation.
I guarantee you, I would have had more if they had won against Madrid. And obviously, if my aunt was my uncle, they would have done. But I would be interested to see if he'd have come out, and I'd had more respect for him if he'd have come out and gone. Even though we've won against Madrid, even though we've overcome Chelsea, these aren't right. He wouldn't have done.
See that game
They're hypocrites.
But do you not admire him more for the fact he is doing it?
No,
having beaten Chelsea.
No, he's empowered. They've got an entitled attitude. They forget all the benefits they get. It's a one-way transaction. It's like sitting across the table from Keir and listen to his. It's a one-way transaction. You take all the advantage, another downside. And it is symptomatic of society. It is symptomatic of the way we look at life in an entitled way.
See, to be fair to City, they chased the game against Real Madrid. And where Madrid, it was not so demanding for Madrid. Maybe, concentration levels were through the roof for Madrid. But they were sitting in. They weren't chasing the game, whereas Man City were. And I think you saw a knock-on effect in the game at the weekend against Chelsea. They weren't quite on it. And we talk about small margins all the time. But I come back to that's the price on the ticket of being successful.
And you can say
you have to deal with it.
No one
you have to deal with it.
You call them snowflakes. If we're not going to listen to serial winners, who are we going to listen to?
No, he can say it. He can turn around and say that the impact of playing a fixture like Real Madrid and the fact that we had to play 120 minutes and the fact that we can have all that. Everyone can accept that. But it's the manner in which it's done, which is my sense of entitlement. Is this an outrage? What's happening to... I don't know how they're going to survive it. Oh, get over yourself. Really? This isn't an episode of Platoon where you're watching Charlie or William Defoe getting shot running towards a helicopter, for Christ's sakes.
Graeme, there's a message. The game is more intense now. Players are fitter and faster. And you can't play 100% for more and more time than you might have done in Souness's day.
Well, one of the questions that get asked, I think more than anything else, people say, "Oh, could you play today?" I said, "Stop there. Can I turn it round? Could the guys today have played in our generation when tackling was allowed? When you weren't running on the pitch, you're running through the pitch. Because from sort of November onwards, it was sometimes the equivalent of a plough field you were playing on. The demands were. See, the other thing I'd like to say when people say that, it's quicker. The game's quicker. All our training was geared on 1 and 2 touch. You can't move the ball any quicker than 1 and 2 touch. I have to disagree with you. You'd expect me to disagree with you.
The only area I think Pep's wrong, I think he's right to voice his opinion. Of course he is. It's his prerogative. But don't say it through the broadcast media, threatening to stop giving interviews to the broadcast media.
It's a wee bit petty. It's not. That's the price on the ticket. It was on the price on the ticket 25 years ago, 40 years ago. If you're successful, you go an extended run through the cups. You go deep in the cups, and every game, I said it earlier to a Man United supporter, when I was at Liverpool, we were told every Saturday afternoon we were going to be playing a cup final. It ain't your cup, it's not our cup final, but it's for the team you're playing. That is the price on the ticket. Deal with it.
Is it as simple as that? Go on with it.
Well, what's the alternative? We're going to play more and more games. If you're successful, we have to deal with it. End of.
Is there not a solution to be had with the authorities, the broadcaster, and the clubs?
Let's make a year,
let's look
longer.
At it.
What's the season longer?
I mean, ultimately,
he's the most successful manager of our generation. And surely he's got to listen to. And that's why he should
act in that way at times. Because that's not a winning mentality. You've won your game, and ultimately you've got challenges. But life is about adversity. None of your players are on the way to hospital. Pack it in. None of your players are surviving something. Pack it in. This is nonsense. You're using hyperbole, and I know that he's playing the media at their own game by using hyperbole and by using narratives that elevate the conversation. The conversation becomes elevated, but it lacks substance. And I look at leaders and go, undoubtedly, no doubt, this is the greatest manager that we've probably seen. But notwithstanding that, doesn't mean you have to admire every single facet what pours out of his trap, and that I don't admire.
Pack it in is the message. Okay.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.